happened between KRS-One and PM Dawn? What's the real story behind that? It was about 1991, late 91, I would say like December, when this whole incident occurred.
Africa Bambaataa has to deal with Africa Bambaataa. The accusations made against him are made against him. They're not made against hip hop. Nothing that Africa Bambaataa did within and for hip hop is to be taken away from him because of these accusations.
Some called them horrible, others said they were unforgivable. When hip-hop legends speak about KRS-One today, the reverence many once held has turned into something much darker. The man who crowned himself the Teacha built a legacy on being the moral voice of the culture, yet that same voice sparked conflicts that still echo through the industry. His story is one of undeniable contributions overshadowed by ego, gatekeeping, and contradictions that turned peers into permanent enemies. Understanding why so many legends harbor resentment toward KRS-One requires looking at the pattern of conflicts that define his career. From the bridge wars of the 80s to his defense of Africa Bambaataa, in recent years, each chapter reveals how the philosopher of hip-hop became the antagonist in his own story. The most recent and damaging controversy came when KRS-One shocked the culture by defending Africa Bambaataa against serious allegations. When accusers came forward with claims of child sexual abuse, KRS-One told critics they should quit hip-hop if they had a problem with the Zulu Nation founder. This moment represented the collapse of his moral authority, but the seeds of resentment were planted decades earlier. The bridge wars of the mid-80s established the template for how KRS-One would handle competition. The Bronx was considered the birthplace of hip-hop, the undisputed holy land where Kool Herc threw the first parties. By the mid-80s, however, Queensbridge was rising as a powerful challenger. The Juice Crew, led by producer Marley Marl, featuring MC Shan as their flagship artist, represented this new Queens dominance. The conflict began with MC Shan's track, The Bridge, in 1985. The song celebrated Queensbridge as a hub of creativity, but Marley Marl later clarified that it was never meant to claim hip-hop started there. He revealed it was background music for Band Day in Queensbridge, essentially intermission music for local events. MC Shan himself repeatedly stated the song was about the start of the Juice Crew scene in Queensbridge specifically, not the entire culture. KRS-One, however, interpreted the lyrics as a direct insult to the Bronx. Whether this was a genuine misunderstanding or a calculated career move remains debated, but it gave him the perfect opportunity to position himself as a defender of historical truth. His response was devastating. Boogie Down Productions released South Bronx and then the definitive diss track, The Bridge Is Over. These weren't just battle raps, but systematic dismantling of the opposition's legitimacy. What makes the bridge wars particularly significant is the strategic asymmetry of KRS-One's approach. The Juice Crew featured formidable lyricists like Big Daddy Kane and Cool G Rap, either of whom could have destroyed KRS-One in a lyrical battle. Critics noted that challenging the entire crew would have been suicide. Instead, KRS-One focused his attacks almost exclusively on MC Shan, isolating him from the stronger members of his crew. By targeting Shan alone, he could symbolically decapitate the group's leadership without facing its most dangerous soldiers. Have you ever seen a rivalry where one artist's entire legacy gets reduced to being the loser? Drop a comment about the most one-sided beef you've witnessed in hip-hop. The effectiveness of this campaign meant MC Shan became permanently synonymous with losing. Despite his contributions as a pioneer and his production skills, his legacy was flattened into being the victim of KRS-One. This erasure is a primary source of the lingering resentment. As late as 2016, Shan challenged KRS-One to a battle to settle the score once and for all, indicating that for him, the war never truly ended. He views KRS-One's career as being built on his back, a parasitic relationship where one man attained stardom by destroying another. Even the attempted reconciliation in 2007, when KRS-One and Marley Marl released the collaborative album Hip Hop Lives, did little to erase the narrative. Decades of dominance cannot be undone by one album. Marley Marl and Shan maintained that KRS-One essentially bullied his way into the history books by attacking a song that was never meant to be a war cry. The PM Dawn incident in 1992 revealed a darker side of the Teacha persona. By the early 90s, hip-hop was fracturing into distinct subgenres. While gangster rap and hardcore East Coast rap dominated the streets, 1990s, alternative groups explored melodic and introspective aesthetics. PM Dawn, led by Prince B, represented the zenith of this alternative wave. Their single, Set Adrift on Memory Bliss, topped the Billboard Hot 100, making them the first black rap act to achieve this with a pop-centric sound. This commercial success, combined with their soft image, made them targets for purists. The tension exploded after Prince B gave an interview to Details magazine, where he questioned KRS-One's self-styled moniker. He asked what exactly KRS-One was teaching, critiquing what he perceived as hollowness in conscious rap. For KRS-One, whose entire brand was built on being the intellectual vanguard, this was intolerable. On January 13, 1992, PM Dawn was performing at the Sound Factory in New York when KRS-One arrived with a large entourage. According to eyewitness accounts from legendary DJ Kid Capri, KRS-One had a whole different crew with him, people who looked ready for violence, not discourse. As PM Dawn began their performance, the BDP crew rushed the stage. KRS-One snatched the microphone from Prince B. In the ensuing chaos, Prince B was physically thrown off the stage. With Prince B ejected, KRS-One didn't leave. Instead, his brother DJ Kenny Parker threw on the instrumental for South Bronx. KRS-One performed a set of his hardcore hits to a crowd that, caught up in the moment, cheered the aggressor. Kid Capri recalled it felt like the floor was going to cave in. The immediate reaction from the hardcore audience was supportive, but the long-term view among hip-hop legends and historians is deeply critical. This was the height of hypocrisy. KRS-One was the founder of the Stop the Violence movement, created after his partner Scott LaRock's murder. He had released the song Self-Destruction to preach peace. For this same man to lead a violent stage invasion against a non-violent group was seen as the ultimate contradiction. Peers viewed this not as a battle of equals, but as a hard rapper punching down on a soft target to reassert street credibility. Prince B was not a gangster, but a pacifist artist. Attacking him didn't prove KRS-One was tough. It proved he was a bully. In interviews following the incident, KRS-One attempted to reframe the assault as a lesson in respect, stating he was a teacher of respect and that Prince B needed to learn consequences. The incident effectively ended PM Dawn's credibility within the core hip-hop community. Prince B later suffered from health issues and passed away in 2016. In the wake of his death, the incident is often revisited with a sense of tragedy. The resentment here stems from the belief that KRS-One used his power to crush an artist simply for having a different opinion, violating the peace and unity principles he claimed to represent. The Cold War with the notorious B.I.G. in the mid-90s represented a generational clash. Biggie embodied the new, commercially viable, luxurious face of New York hip-hop through Bad Boy Records. KRS-One represented the austere, political, and foundational school. The song Kicking the Door from Biggie's album Life After Death is widely regarded as a multi-target diss track with lines aimed at KRS-One, Jeru, the Damaja, and Nas. The Mad Rapper skit on the track, featuring a character who rants about being an angry, washed-up MC, was seen by many as a perfect caricature of KRS-One at the time. The friction intensified when Biggie declared himself the king of New York, a title KRS-One felt belonged to him by virtue of tenure and skill. In a 1995 interview, when asked to rate his competition, Biggie was dismissive of KRS-One, simply responding with a curt dismissal that effectively waved off the legend's relevance. KRS-One's brother, DJ Kenny Parker, explained in his book that KRS took this personally. It wasn't just a difference of opinion, but a lack of deference. Retrospectively, KRS-One showed rare self-reflection regarding this feud. He admitted that his animosity toward Biggie was fueled by his own unchecked ego. He acknowledged that during that era, he viewed every rising star as an existential threat to his dominance. He stated he let his ego take over his approach. The resentment KRS felt toward Biggie was rooted in competitive fear. Biggie represented a shift where skills were measured by flow, commercial appeal, and lifestyle, areas where KRS-One's didactic edutainment style could not compete. The tension remained unresolved due to Biggie's death in 1997. For the Bad Boy camp and Biggie fan, KRS-One is remembered as a hater, an elder statesman who couldn't handle the fact that the crown had passed to a younger, more commercially viable king. The feud with Nelly in 2002 illustrates why many younger artists and industry figures grew to resent KRS-One's gatekeeping. The conflict began when KRS-One publicly criticized commercial rap as hollow and destructive. Nelly, at the peak of his commercial powers with the album Nellyville, took offense. On the track number one, Nelly Nelly rapped about KRS-One, calling him commercial rap, while asking who did commercials first, referencing KRS-One's appearances in Sprite commercials in the 90s. KRS-One responded by calling for a universal boycott of Nellyville. He argued that Nelly was challenging a sovereign power and needed to be disciplined. He released the diss track Over Here, attempting to rally the streets against the pop star. The boycott was a resounding failure. Nellyville sold over 6 million copies in the United States alone and produced massive hits. The Teacha called for a revolution, and the public responded by buying the Target's album in record numbers. The resentment generated during this period came from the perception that KRS-One had become a bitter old head. The hypocrisy of the Sprite commercials struck a chord. KRS-One had participated in corporate capitalism when it suited him. To demonize the next generation for achieving financial success using the very commercial avenues he had once utilized was seen as jealous gatekeeping. Critics noted that he targeted Nelly, a melodic rapper from the Midwest, rather than harder commercial rappers, leading to accusations of opportunism. The failure of the boycott demonstrated that the Teacha could no longer command the streets or the consumers. The Africa Bambaataa controversy represents the most catastrophic loss of moral authority. Africa Bambaataa, founder of the Universal Zulu Nation and a godfather of hip-hop, was accused by multiple men of child sexual abuse dating back to the 80s. Ronald Savage, a former Zulu Nation member, went public in 2016 with allegations that Bambaataa had molested him when he was 15. Other accusers followed with similar stories. In 2025, a default judgment was granted against Bambaataa in a civil case, legally cementing the claim. When asked about these allegations, KRS-One's response was shockingly dismissive of the victims. In interviews, he stated that when you're talking about Africa Bambaataa, you're talking about the person who invented hip-hop. He declared there was no hip-hop before Africa Bambaataa, and that anyone who has a problem with him should quit hip-hop. He framed the allegations as a conspiracy by government and corporate agencies designed to destroy black leaders, rather than addressing the specific claims of victims. The reaction from the hip-hop community was swift and damning. Lord Jamar of Brand Nubian became one of the most vocal critics. He disputed KRS-One's claim that Bambaataa was untouchable, arguing that watching someone build a house doesn't mean you built it too. He rejected the idea that Bambaataa was immune to criticism because of pioneer status. Jamar also noted the rumors of Bambaataa's behavior had circulated for 20 years and that KRS-One's dismissal was indefensible. Grandmaster Flash emphasized that the culture needed to deal with this issue rather than sweep it under the rug. Ronald Savage expressed deep hurt and betrayal, noting that KRS-One, a self-proclaimed leader and teacher, was effectively silencing victims to protect a predator. This betrayal by a hero of the culture deepened the trauma for accusers. The resentment here is distinct from previous beefs. It was not about lyrics or sales, but about character. By placing the abstract concept of the culture above the safety of actual children, KRS-One was viewed as having betrayed the very ethical principles he claimed to uphold. For many, this was the moment the Teacha lost his moral standing entirely. Looking at the pattern of conflicts reveals consistent character traits. KRS-One views himself not just as a practitioner of hip-hop, but as its avatar. This messiah complex leads him to believe that an attack on him is an attack on the culture itself. When PM Dawn questioned his credentials, they were questioning hip-hop's intellectualism. When Nelly made pop rap, he was polluting the sanctity of the culture. When victims accused Bambaataa, they were trying to destroy the father of the movement. This conflation of self and culture allows him to justify aggression and moral negligence under the guise of protection. Peers resent this because it invalidates their own agency. The contradiction between preaching "stop the violence" while leading stage invasions frustrates those who see it as performative. He utilizes the aesthetic of peace when it builds his brand, but employs the tools of war when his dominance is threatened. The Bambaataa incident remains the most damaging. For decades, KRS-One's shield against criticism was his intellect and righteousness. He could be arrogant, arrogant because he was right. He could be aggressive because he was righteous. However, defending alleged abuse dismantled that shield. It exposed the fatal flaw in his philosophy, the belief that the temple of hip-hop matters more than the human beings who inhabit it. The animosity directed at KRS-One by hip-hop legends is rooted in deep ideological and ethical fractures. MC Sean resents the revisionist history that marginalized his career. PM Dawn supporters resent the violent enforcement of rigid authenticity standards. The camps of Biggie and Nelly resent the arrogance and refusal to cede the spotlight. The broader community harbors deep resentment for his defense of Bambaataa, viewing it as a betrayal of basic human morality. KRS-One remains a towering figure in the genre, but he is a flawed monument. His legacy is one of immense artistic contribution, overshadowed by rigid authoritarianism that frequently turned peers into enemies. The Teacha educated the world on hip-hop, but his conflicts suggest he often failed to learn the lessons of humility, adaptability, and empathy from the very culture he helped to build. Perhaps that is the greatest tragedy of all. The man who positioned himself as the guardian of hip-hop's soul may have lost his own in the process of defending it. What's your take on the legends who spoke out against him? Leave your thoughts below.